Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope this finds you well. This week we have a double portion, Acharei and Kedoshim. I'm going to talk about Kedoshim. So usually Parshiot are named for the first meaningful word in them. So Kedoshim is called that because it starts with the sentence, and God spoke to Moses saying, "Tell all the people of Israel, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Kadosh, holiness, Kedoshim, holy people, plural. Let's break it down. So the first thing that we notice is this is the first time that anyone has said, speak to the entire people of Israel. Kol Edat B'nai Israel, all the tribes of the people of Israel. So that's men, women, and children. That's everyone. Up until this point in Vayikra, we've been talking about elite things. We've been talking about sacrifices that are specific and only done in certain times. We've been talking about the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan that we have in the desert, the portable tabernacle, and we've talked about Kohanim, priests. You can only be a Kohen if you are from the tribe of Levi. You can't have any sort of markings on you. You have to be like specific, like aesthetically pleasing. It's very gatekeepery. All the things that we're talking about are very specific and not 100% relatable to everyone. But this is inclusive. Kol Edat B'nai Israel, speak to all the people of Israel, saying, "You are holy, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." So it's important that everyone hears this. Interestingly enough, this Parsha Kedoshim is one of the examples of one of the Parshas that was read in an ancient custom called Hakel, where a Torah portion will be read 100% out loud for the king and for all the people. And Kedoshim is one of those examples. It's obviously important enough that it needs to be read out loud. And it was important enough for God to specifically instruct Moshe to bring Kol Edat B'nai Israel to hear it. This makes sense because there are 51 mitzvot in the Parsha of Kedoshim. That is not the most amount of mitzvot that we have in a Parsha, but it is the most mitzvot dense, meaning that there are the most amount of mitzvot per pasuk, per line. So we start off saying, speak to all of Bnei Israel, saying, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." But what is holiness? Well, the rest of the Parsha kind of tells us. So, like I said, there are a lot of mitzvot. So it's essentially a guide to being holy. You would think that, when you hear the word holy, I don't know, I think of like a monk levitating or like, I don't know, like the priests in the temple, holiness. It feels like very, very separate and removed from normal life. But the mitzvot that are listed are very much related to normal life. So I'll just read you a few of them. The first one that's cool is do not deny it when something of value that belongs to another is in your possession. Do not swear falsely in denial about something of value, and do not swear falsely, period. Do not withhold another's property. Do not delay payment of a hired worker. Do not make a trusting person stumble through misleading advice. Do not pervert justice in a civil judgment. Do not gossip. Don't shame anyone. Don't take revenge. Don't bear a grudge. And then maybe the one that sums up the whole thing: love your fellow person. Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, and you shall love l'orecha, your fellow, your other, kamocha, as yourself. Kamocha. So we did a lot of different translations of this. There's love your neighbor as yourself, the golden rule. It's kind of the golden rule for us too. You may have heard the story of this man that comes to Rabbi Hillel and to Rabbi Shammai. The man says to Shammai, "Teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot." And Shammai is like, "How dare you insult me? Leave." I think even he like chases him with a stick or something. Then the man goes to Rabbi Hillel, and Hillel says, "Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha." Love your fellow as you love yourself. The rest is commentary. Now go learn. Beautiful. And then later, a few hundred years later, Rabbi Akiva also says that Ve'ahavta l'orecha kamocha is an important principle in the Torah. So this is an important line, and it happens in this parsha. Loving your neighbor as yourself, all of those things, they do fall under that. Not bearing a grudge, not bearing revenge, not lying, not keeping something that's someone else's. All of these things have to do with treating our fellow well. But what does it mean to treat our fellow well? What does it mean to love our neighbor as ourselves? We are all unique people. I like chocolate ice cream. You may hate chocolate ice cream. You're wrong, but you may hate chocolate ice cream. If I am going to get you ice cream for your birthday, I don't know what kind of ice cream you like, but I like chocolate ice cream. So I'm going to get chocolate ice cream because I love you like I love myself, right? I'm going to get the ice cream that I would like. No, no, no. You love someone as you would want them to love you, meaning according to your specific qualities. So You don't get chocolate ice cream because you love chocolate ice cream, but it's more about honoring who they are. We are not all the same. We are all unique. We all have different qualities, like I said. And so loving our neighbor as ourselves is loving our neighbor as we would like to be loved, which sometimes means loving our neighbor in a way that we don't think we would want to be loved. So sometimes there are people who, if they're upset, they don't want anyone to talk to them. Or there are some people who, when they're upset, they just want to be hugged. And there are some people where that's the worst thing in the world to do. So how can we know? Communication. You can just ask. I think in most cases we can just ask our fellow, how can I love you as myself? I think it's a really really beautiful concept. So again, just to rewind, we've been talking about holiness this whole time. Holiness that's accessible because holiness is our daily lives. Our daily lives don't have to be mundane. We talk about this concept of elevating the mundane, elevating the normal, that holiness can exist everywhere, which is true because there are sparks of holiness in everything. We have this idea that there are sparks of holiness in every object and in food and clothes and in anything you may interact with. It's just waiting to be released into the world. And we have the power to elevate things in that way. So, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So maybe think about this week. What does that mean to you? Maybe have a little discussion about it. And then just think about the rest of the mitzvot that I mentioned. I'm just going to read a few again. Don't take revenge. Don't bear a grudge. Um, do not cheat with any kind of measure. Ensure that your scales, weights, and measures are correct, and do not curse your father or mother. These are examples of how to be holy. It's also ways of leading a good, proper life, whatever the heck a good and proper means. We can equate holiness with goodness sometimes. In this situation, holiness and goodness do align pretty much. So just think about these ideas of these mitzvot. I hope that this was a meaningful idea to you, and Shabbat Shalom.